The landscape inside the NFC East has quietly but decisively changed. And even when the shift does not originate in Dallas, the consequences reach straight into the Cowboys' season outlook. New York's decision to bring in John Harbaugh sends a clear message that the Giants are done drifting. This is not a move built on hope or projection. It is a statement rooted in credibility, experience, and authority. The moment Harbaugh steps into that building, the culture shifts, expectations sharpen, and the division becomes far less forgiving. For Dallas, that means Sundays just got heavier, margins thinner, and relying on raw talent alone is no longer a safe bet from the Cowboys' point of view. This hire matters because it reshapes the competitive ecosystem they operate in. The Giants are no longer a team content with incremental progress or long-term rebuilding language. They are signaling urgency and accountability. And that kind of energy forces the rest of the division to respond. Every divisional game already carries weight, but now the physicality, discipline, and preparation level across the board is expected to rise. When you face a team like that twice every season, even small advantages disappear quickly. The ripple effects go beyond game planning and standings. A hire of this magnitude sets off movement across coaching staffs throughout the league, especially on defense. Assistants reassess their options, coordinators gain leverage, and front offices recalibrate timelines. That environment directly impacts Dallas as it continues its own search for a defensive coordinator. Early interviews do not guarantee control of the process, and being first rarely means being alone. The market becomes crowded fast once a respected head coach enters the picture elsewhere. There is also a technical layer that complicates everything. Interim titles and contractual language allow certain assistants to explore opportunities that would normally be blocked. That opens doors that rarely exist this early and turns the coordinator market into a competition rather than a queue. For Dallas, that creates opportunity, but also urgency. Any candidate who performs well in an interview immediately becomes a shared asset, not an exclusive one. This is where patience becomes both necessary and uncomfortable. The Cowboys are operating in a cycle where there are numerous defensive coordinator openings across the league, with more potentially emerging depending on how remaining head coaching decisions unfold. Strong candidates are being pulled in multiple directions, and interviews are happening on uneven schedules. That chaos is not a sign of dysfunction. It is the reality of a serious search that prioritizes fit over familiarity. What stands out so far is that Dallas appears willing to explore beyond its usual comfort zone. Instead of zeroing in on a single familiar name, the team has engaged with coaches from varied backgrounds and philosophical roots. Some bring deep professional experience. Others arrive with hybrid resumes shaped by both college and professional systems. And some are position coaches prepared to take a larger step. That range suggests the Cowboys are reassessing not just who runs the defense, but what kind of defense they want to become. Of course, internal dynamics still matter. Every head coach prefers working with someone they trust, someone who communicates clearly and aligns with their vision. That is standard across the league. The real test is whether that comfort is balanced with evolution. Early indications suggest Dallas is at least listening beyond its inner circle, which marks a meaningful departure from previous cycles where familiarity often outweighed innovation. One candidate drawing attention comes from a background deeply rooted in defensive line play and run game structure. That profile matters because while Dallas has invested heavily up front, consistency has been elusive. A coordinator who prioritizes leverage, gap control, and situational awareness could unlock more production without overhauling the roster. When that experience is paired with exposure to disciplined systems, it carries weight in a league that increasingly values structure under pressure. At the same time, not every interview request is being approved. Some organizations are holding firm, especially when they foresee internal promotions or want to maintain continuity. That adds another layer of timing and strategy to Dallas' process. A coach unavailable today might become an option later, and recognizing that requires flexibility rather than reactionary decisions. Hovering over the entire discussion is one name that commands attention regardless of timing. Brian Flores remains the most sought-after defensive mind on the market. His reputation is built on preparation, adaptability, and an ability to disrupt elite offenses. If and when he becomes fully available, every team searching for a defensive coordinator will want a conversation. That alone explains why his situation feels separate from the rest of the field. The absence of immediate movement does not signal disinterest. High-level candidates often enter These processes later due to overlapping opportunities and strategic considerations when head coaching possibilities exist. Timelines stretch and leverage shifts, virtual meetings, in-person discussions, and negotiations rarely align neatly. And patience often serves as positioning rather than hesitation. Dallas appears to be moving in phases. The initial stage has centered on gathering information, understanding philosophies, and identifying compatibility that naturally involves broader outreach and virtual conversations. The next stage, which has yet to fully surface publicly, will narrow the focus and bring more intensive discussions. That is typically when the most impactful decisions take shape, when leverage changes hands, and when clarity begins to emerge. This approach feels unfamiliar because the Cowboys have not consistently operated this way in recent years. Previous coordinator searches often followed predictable paths and concluded quickly. This time, the process is slower, wider, and more deliberate. That does not guarantee success, but it does suggest a recognition that past methods carried limitations the organization can no longer afford as the rest of the league continues to sort through its coaching changes. The coordinator market is set to intensify. More openings will appear, competition will sharpen, and top candidates will gain options. Dallas cannot afford panic, but drifting carries its own risks. The balance between patience and decisiveness will define how this search unfolds. Especially with the division growing stronger and expectations remaining unchanged, the tension surrounding the search continues to build. Not because the Cowboys are idle, but because so many variables are in motion at once. Each passing day subtly reshapes the board. Coaches accept new roles. Interviews take place quietly, and priorities evolve behind closed doors. From the outside, it can feel slow, but inside league buildings this phase is often the most delicate, where information and alignment matter more than speed. What makes this particular offseason even more complex is how competitive the demand has become for high-level defensive minds. The league continues to tilt toward offense, with rule changes, spacing concepts, and quarterback-friendly systems driving production. That trend only increases the value of coordinators who can counter it with disguise, pressure variety, and week-to-week adaptability. Teams are no longer satisfied with a play caller who sticks rigidly to a system. They want problem solvers who can evolve in real time, teach adjustments clearly, and maintain composure when opponents force uncomfortable situations. For Dallas, that expectation carries extra weight because the defense has already shown flashes of dominance. There have been stretches where the unit looked fast, aggressive, and overwhelming, but those moments have not always translated when the stakes were highest. Opponents adjusted, tempos changed, and weaknesses were targeted. The next defensive coordinator is being asked to bridge that gap, turning raw potential into reliability. That is not about reinventing the roster. It is about refining communication, sequencing calls better, and anticipating counters before they happen. This is why Brian Flores remains such a central figure in the conversation, even without visible progress. His defenses are known for preparation and controlled aggression. They challenge quarterbacks mentally as much as physically, forcing hesitation through disguise and pressure timing. That identity is appealing to any contender, especially one that has seen games slip away due to stalled adjustments. At the same time, Flores represents a significant cultural shift. His presence would reshape how the defense operates daily, and not every organization is equally prepared for that level of intensity. There is also the reality that Flores may never fully enter the market. Head coaching opportunities can materialize quickly, and if one aligns with his timeline, the coordinator discussion becomes irrelevant. Even if that does not happen, multiple teams would compete aggressively for his services. That kind of environment forces Dallas to balance optimism with realism, ensuring that the search does not hinge on a single outcome. That is where the broader candidate pool becomes essential. Dallas has shown interest in coaches who specialize deeply in specific areas, particularly along the defensive line. That focus makes sense. Controlling the line of scrimmage remains one of the most reliable ways to dictate games, especially in postseason settings where margins are tight. A coordinator who builds his system from the front outward can simplify responsibilities for the second and third levels, allowing athleticism to shine without constant exposure. Another element that often gets overlooked is teaching ability. Modern defenses are layered with checks, rotations, and situational rules. The most successful coordinators are not just creative, they are clear. They translate complexity into confidence. Dallas has invested heavily in young defensive talent, And maximizing that investment depends on communication as much as scheme. Players must understand not just what they are doing, but why they are doing it. Especially when adjustments are required mid-game, the interview process itself plays a larger role than fans typically realize. Virtual meetings are useful for philosophy and background, but in-person conversations reveal far more. That is where leadership style, conflict management, and adaptability come into focus. Those discussions tend to happen later in the cycle, once teams are confident they are speaking with the right fits. Dallas appears to be approaching that transition point, even if there is little public indication yet. Meanwhile, other teams are operating on uneven timelines. Some have already filled coordinator roles, while others are waiting for remaining head coaching decisions to settle. That staggered pace can create confusion externally, but internally it often creates opportunity. A candidate who was unavailable early can suddenly re-enter the picture. Teams that remain flexible are often rewarded when circumstances shift. Internal alignment also looms large over this decision. A defensive coordinator does not function in isolation. He works within a structure that includes the head coach, the offensive staff, and the front office. Philosophical disconnects can undermine even the most talented coaches. That is why interviews focus heavily on collaboration, adaptability, and shared vision. Dallas must ensure that whoever takes the role fits within a broader plan for complementary football. Situational defense is another critical area under evaluation. Third downs, red zone possessions, and late-game sequences have defined outcomes for this team in recent seasons. The next coordinator must demonstrate a clear approach to those moments, not just on paper but in practice habits and weekly preparation. Those answers rarely show up in surface-level resumes, which is why deeper evaluation takes time. As coordinator hiring accelerates across the league, the pressure around Dallas will intensify. Fans will want clarity, speculation will grow louder, and every quiet day will invite scrutiny inside the building. However, the emphasis remains on precision rather than speed. The organization understands that this hire will shape the defensive identity, not just for one season, but for multiple years. That reality is magnified by the direction of the division, with rivals stabilizing and improving their coaching infrastructures. The margin for error continues to shrink. Dallas still possesses one of the most talented rosters in the conference, but talent alone no longer creates separation. Execution, adaptability, and leadership on defense will ultimately determine how far this team can go. As interviews continue and circumstances evolve, the picture will slowly come into focus. The process may feel disjointed from the outside, but meaningful change often is. Dallas is navigating a moment that requires balance, weighing familiarity against growth and patience against urgency. How the Cowboys handle this phase will reveal not just who they hire, but how they view themselves in the current landscape of the league. Before we roll on, subscribe to Cowboys Wire News, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Your support keeps the Dallas Cowboys updates coming. Tell us what you think in the comments. In what would certainly rank as one of the most shocking moves of the NFL offseason, sources are reporting that Myles Garrett, the dominant defensive end known for his relentless pass rushing and game-changing presence, has agreed to terms with the Dallas Cowboys. ESPN is confirming the development, though the details remain under wraps, leaving fans and analysts alike scrambling to process the implications. Garrett, who has spent the majority of his career with the Cleveland Browns, has long been a cornerstone of their defense, terrorizing quarterbacks and reshaping games with a combination of speed, strength, and football IQ. The notion of him in a Cowboys uniform, however, was scarcely imaginable until now. Rumors had swirled over the past months about his potential destinations, but the consensus pointed to a team with salary cap flexibility and a desperate need for defensive firepower. Dallas fits both criteria. The Cowboys, already known for their aggressive pursuit of star talent, could be signaling a serious intent to dominate defensively in the coming seasons. Garrett's presence would instantly transform their front line, pairing him with established stars and giving the secondary much-needed breathing room. Analysts are already speculating how his addition could force opposing offenses to rethink their approach against Dallas. For a team in the NFC East with championship aspiration, this acquisition, if finalized, could be a seismic shift. From a locker room perspective, the dynamic is intriguing as well. Garrett is known not only for his talent, but also for his leadership and intensity. How he will integrate into a team with established stars like Micah, Parsons, and Prescott remains a hot topic. Some suggest his arrival could spark a defensive renaissance in Dallas, while others wonder if the transition to a new system might temper his impact initially. Social media has exploded with reactions ranging from excitement to outright disbelief. Cowboys fans are celebrating what could be the biggest defensive signing in recent memory, while Browns supporters are grappling with the idea of losing a franchise-defining player. Regardless of perspective, one thing is clear: the NFL landscape just shifted dramatically, and every team will be watching closely to see how this rumored blockbuster unfolds. The exact terms of the deal are still confidential, and sources caution that nothing is truly official until contracts are filed. Still, the possibility of Garrett in Cowboys silver and blue has ignited endless speculation about Dallas's future strategy, defensive schemes, and even potential Super Bowl trajectories. If true, this move could rewrite off-season expectations and send shockwaves across the league. That's a wrap from Cowboys Wire News. For breaking Cowboys updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Tell us your take in the comments.